Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Diploma. I'm Emerson Sprinkle. I'm here with my co host, Avery Park, and our editor, Catherine Chapini. And today we are going to be discussing Abraham.
Yes, so today we are interviewing Abraham Fu. He has so much experience. He went to Duke University. He got his Bachelor's of Science degree in mathematics, economics, and markets and management. He had plenty of experience. He worked as an analyst at Bank of America. He worked in CapTech Ventures as a senior manager. But his most recent role was at T. Rowe Price. He was the head of business management, or I think eventually he became equity general manager. So he had a huge responsibility.
Mhm.
You can see he's very experienced. If you look him up on the internet or on LinkedIn, he has so many letters next to his name. He has like, I don't know, ASQ, SSBB. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. But he was super helpful. You could tell even when he's talking, he's very experienced and very professional in the way he speaks.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like he's one of those people who, I don't know, he was saying, he was really passionate about what he does, obviously, and very knowledgeable on all of it. And even when I didn't understand, sometimes he would get into the, technical part of, what he did. And even if I wasn't familiar with it, I could tell that that was definitely something that he was like passionate about and really into, which I think is great because the whole point of this podcast is people finding, something for them, finding something that they can be passionate about. So I think it's really great to see that side of something that some people think of as, I guess, intimidating. Like, finance is like a scary industry. And so I think it was really cool.
No,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Editing it, it was kind of hard to keep up because he's done so much and I didn't know where we were at, but it was really interesting because towards the end of it, obviously when he talks about his retirement,
Hmm.
like I love how he just really does what he loves and what he's interested in at that moment.
I was about to say, even though he's a finance man and like we said, he had a huge responsibility at T. Rowe Price, he has something very interesting to talk about in this podcast is that he is retired. And I think he is, I would say, no older than 40. I don't know, but he is definitely on the younger side of retirement. And he is genuinely such an interesting person because of the way he talked about not just his interest in finance and mathematics and data science and such, but he also talks about how he's interested in pursuing making mead,
Yeah.
growing marijuana, and woodworking.
Yeah. Didn't he say he built like a, yeah, like woodworking?
Yeah, so he is such an interesting person. A lot of people stereotype finance pros as just
Yeah.
like, just going after the money, but you can tell he's really cares about not just what he does, but how he feels about what he does. He's really true to himself, and I think that's just so inspiring on a different level that you can enjoy what you do and also like enjoy like your job, but also enjoy maybe life without having not
No, yeah. I feel like it was really refreshing for the podcast, obviously, because we're so career focused,
yes,
but
this is one.
just to see that, like, even if no matter what you end up doing, like, that isn't the end all be all. And there will
Job
always
does
be
not
parts of
define
your
you.
life, yeah, that you're passionate about that you aren't pursuing in a career, but that can still be a big part of your life. And obviously, it's a little easier for him because he managed to get to that point a lot earlier than most people. But I think that's really great. It shows you how important it is to kind of keep your passions alive, even when you're doing something else.
Yeah. And like I said, he was very professional, but I think if you look for it, he's actually really funny.
Yeah.
He showed it bits and pieces of it in the podcast. I wish you all could know him in real life. He is so cool. Like I said, he's so interesting and yeah, he's funny. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know we learned a lot. If you're going to
Mhm.
learn, if you really want to go and be an econ major or pursue a career in finance, this is the episode to watch because he has definitely done it successfully. And yeah, so let's let's get into it.
Yeah, here's Abraham, everyone. Hi, everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Diploma. My name is Emerson Sprinkle and I'm here with my co-host Avery Park. And today we have a very special guest with us. We're here with Abraham. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So just to get started, could you tell us about your role at Rowe Price and what you focused on there?
Sure. So my last role at Rowe Price, I was the general manager for a new investment entity called Rowe Investment Management. And Rowe is known for providing investment instruments like mutual funds, ETFs. So what our division did was we helped manage the portfolio managers, the analysts who would research the companies, put together which companies should be bought from a stock perspective, put it into the portfolio, and then allow that to be sold to the market.
Thank you. Specifically, could you talk about, your journey getting to T. Rowe Price? Did you always know that you wanted to work in finance, or did you have interests that evolved over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's finance has always been an area where I had interest. I think it aligned with kind of what I wanted to do. Um, so I graduated from Duke. They didn't have a business major. There is a graduate program for business, but for undergrad, it was, econ and math was as close as I could get. And that's what I did. Jokingly, it felt like most of my friends were either becoming doctors or they were going into finance. And so for me, finance seemed a lot better than doing, years more of school and going into and being a doctor. It wasn't always the straightest or the most kind of one-to-one journey for me. Coming out of school, I did start at B of A Merrill, but then given kind of the merger with B of A and Merrill, I thought I'd rather go into consulting for a little while, just so that I can see as much as I can in a very short amount of time, to see, do I really like the things that I did, or is there something more interesting to me that I could figure out? And then with that, consulting, once you hit a certain stage, it's a lot more about selling work than it is about the actual work. So with that, I kind of transitioned to T. Rowe Price.
Great. So in terms of students looking at potential financial careers, like as you had early on, what skills or I guess experiences do you think are the most important for someone who'd want to enter that industry?
Yeah. So for students kind of going through school and kind of thinking about finance, really you want to have some of the basics. So if you are thinking about your economics, if there's a stocks and bonds or investment class, that would be helpful. But outside of that, I think really kind of brushing up on current events, what's going on in the market, so you can actually have some of the conversation when there are interviews or when the companies come through to kind of do internships or whatever else.
So specifically at T. Rowe Price, I know you played a very big role there. You had, I'm sure, a lot of responsibility, a lot of people and clients counting on you. And I just wanted to know, like, a little bit more about that. Like, how do you search for new talents? How do you make these big decisions? What gives you some like confidence behind your decisions?
Yeah. So when we're recruiting new people or interviewing people, and I'll talk specifically to the business management side, because the investors are a whole different breed. So I won't talk through that yet. But for the business management side, really, it's twofold, right? So one, we handle a lot of the strategy and the operations and kind of the finance to make sure that the division can run as smoothly as possible. For that, I'm looking for people who are generally reliable, who have some background in being able to manage these things. But key to that for me was being able to tell a story. So we live a lot in PowerPoints, and when you have to deliver to the C-suite or executives, it's all in PowerPoint. And so the ability to craft a story of whether it's we need additional budget dollars or we want to put forth a strategic program, it's unfortunately all done via PowerPoint and storytelling through PowerPoint. So that is a key skill. It's not that you have to have that perfected before you join, but rather that there is some basis of how you think about your story and how you want to tell the story. And obviously the willingness to learn if your skills aren't kind of up to par.
Yeah, great. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. So I guess my next question would be, the industry is obviously changing a lot, not just because of a natural evolution over time, but also obviously because of like the rise of artificial intelligence. And so, how has the industry changed since you started, in ways that you kind of noticed? And then especially for AI, like what do you think that the future holds for these young professionals who are looking to enter the industry?
Yeah. So twofold for the industry itself. Obviously, very specific to T Rowe. There's a movement away from mutual funds to ETFs and different vehicles. You do have to learn about new products that are coming on. I say products, new kind of cryptocurrency or blockchain, and how that fits. Is it something that you want to invest in? And so there's always kind of there are newer things that will come up, and you'll need to figure out how that integrates or not integrate into the business you have. In terms of AI, I think it's good and bad. Obviously, part of the good part is it can streamline a lot of the tedious things, and so some of the usages we've seen at T Rowe, it can scan the annual filings of companies or quarterly filings, and start to scrape some of the revenues and other things that they may be interested in versus having to read hundreds of pages per company. I think there is the pitfall of that at least for right now, the reliability of the information that's being generated by AI, and kind of how trustworthy is it? Because ultimately, you don't want to make decisions on the order of magnitude of billions of dollars if it accidentally, gave you a wrong number or told you something because it was, hallucinating or something along those lines.
That's great. We were actually just about to ask you about kind of more of the ethical standpoint of using AI. Again, like you said, with billions of dollars at stake. If you have anything more you want to add on to that, but also, like you touched on this, AI is also evolving as well. And so, as the two subjects evolve together, kind of looking forward, in your opinion, what would you say? Like, what's next? Like, do you think I've heard about like quantum? Is quantum the next AI? Like, kind of in your opinion, just what's next? What's the next step? What are possible future opportunities that some young professionals looking to enter this field might want to take up on?
Yeah, I know there is kind of a significant amount of energy being put into AI. And so obviously that creates jobs, that creates kind of for the developers and coders who are kind of looking at that. It's a little bit of a conundrum in terms of, at least so far, from what we've seen, there is a lot of potential in AI, but the effectiveness and return on AI isn't quite ready for production, really, in terms of, and I'll talk a little bit about the previous division I was at T Rowe. For kind of the retail investors, a lot of AI, where that was geared was, it evolved from like chatbots to potentially helping people through if they called in, or trying to predict kind of what you might do online on the website. What we found is, there are some use cases where it's helpful, but I feel like everyone's probably used a chatbot before, where you're kind of like, this isn't quite what I want, and ultimately, a lot of that has to get figured out. Um, Otherwise, people are just going to use a different venue, or they're going to get frustrated and then just not use your company if you continue to kind of push that. So I think there is a lot of opportunity in that space to really figure out, the reliability of AI in terms of usage. I know most of the focus right now is kind of breaking into new space, what is new and shiny, which is great for the headlines, but it's a little bit harder for companies who need the reliability.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially because it's like so evolving and there's a lot of nuances to it. So I guess now we can kind of transition into, obviously you aren't at T. Rowe Price anymore, but
Yep.
before we kind of get to that stage, could you tell us what your favorite thing about working at T. Rowe Price was, or do you ever miss it? Things like that.
Yeah, I think they're a great bunch of people. I think the culture was good. Obviously, you want to find a place where you work well with all of the other individuals, and not to say you have to work well with everybody, but generally a good culture. Um, that, that's as important, I think, for me, when you're looking at joining a company, and something that might be good as part of the interview to really figure out kind of what do they stand for, what kind of culture do they have, and what type of people would fit well in terms of when you're working there. Obviously, people have different working styles, and some companies have what I'll call a little bit more kind of bureaucratical or hierarchical cultures than others.
Right. And I like you were talking about kind of finding what's right for you, in your opinion. Obviously, you went more of the corporate side, but I know a lot of people who want to break into the industry through startups. Could you
Mm-hmm.
talk more about that, like the difference between a corporate work life versus a startup one, and what made you decide to go corporate versus startup? I know also T. Rowe Price kind of uses startup companies as well. Could you talk about from that perspective?
Sure. I'll give two examples here. So funny enough, my little brother actually went down the startup route. Part of the reason, and I think it just has to do with personality, right? And so for me, I wanted something that was more stable. For startups, hopefully the first one or the first few you join are wildly successful. That's not always the case, and a lot of your compensation is tied to stock usually in startups. So if it makes it big and it goes public or it's a unicorn, then great. Obviously, I'll equate it to, not that I have one, but I'll equate it to having a baby. It's your full time attention all day, every day. Um, in order to kind of get it up and running and in a place that you want it to be. Now obviously people who go into startup, it's obviously they're very passionate about it. Hopefully you don't go into it without having a passion about whatever you're doing, because that'll be a recipe for disaster, because it's long hours and the payoff might not be for a couple of years. For the corporate side, it's steadier, it'll be slower from a climb perspective, but I feel like it's a little easier to kind of balance work and life.
So kind of along the same lines of that, kind of figuring out what you want. I know you said that like you kind of just made the decision to go into finance. Did you have any like specific like mentors or people that helped you when you were at T. Rowe Price that kind of helped you figure out what you were going to do? Or was it more so just that kind of like collaborative culture and like working with good people that kind of like helped you figure that out?
Yeah, so I would say what helped me along the way was kind of going through school. Obviously, internships are very helpful. If not for helping you know what you want to do, I think even more important is helping you understand what you don't want to do. And so I think it's perfectly fine to do an internship and realize, look, this type of job is not for me. Obviously, I grew up in Charlotte, so that was Bank of America and Wachovia at the time. So there was a lot of family friends who were in finance. So talking to them probably was a big factor as well. And obviously, a lot of the internships around there were in finance. So that was a big influence. But for you guys, kind of thinking about what you want to do, I would say internships, talk to people, even if it is a month or two. Where obviously I don't recommend doing a ton of unpaid internships, but if you just want to get a sense of what it is, it might be helpful, and you'll probably get a sense of that pretty quickly.
Right, that actually leads perfectly again into my next question. I was going to ask, now that I'm a high school senior, I everyone goes around asking like, "Oh, so what's your major?" And every other person saying they want to be an econ major, they want to go into finance, and then you kind of lead a follow up, and you're like, "So what do you want to do?" And they're like, "I just want to be an econ major."
Yeah, yeah.
Could you talk about that? Like, how do you suggest? I know you talked about internships, but also like through networking and using school resources. How would you suggest finding more of like what you want to do, but also how much do you want to explore in college with other subjects? I know a lot of people who end up working in finance are also like English majors. Just I guess how much that balance of finding what you want to do, but also if you really do want to go and be an econ major, how much of that balance and how much will that play into what you do want to do or finding what you do want to do?
Yeah, I think those are great questions. For me, kind of my recommendation would be, look, at least for freshman year, enjoy yourself, have fun. I think it's good to explore kind of different classes. Obviously, the later you kind of figure out what you want to do, there may be a lot of classes in addition, fundamental classes that you have to take, the 101s and everything else. But ultimately, college is a great time to kind of figure out what it is that you do like and don't like. And for those who kind of think about going into econ, myself included, was, you know, obviously it is one of the easier ways to ensure that you're going to get a job that potentially will pay a good amount, right? So it's a steady job that can support a lifestyle. Um, I think at some point in college, or out of college, it'd be good to kind of just think about what it is you want out of life and what's important. It's okay if it's, you get into a job where you're like, this isn't great. You're not stuck in it. You can always think about what you want to do in a year or two, and what the next step might be. So don't ever think that you're stuck. Um, and then on the other side of that, I I I think it's always good to figure out what you want to do. But if you don't, it's not the biggest deal. It's a great time to explore. College is a great time to explore and figure out, if nothing else, what you don't like doing, because that's a much easier thing, I think, to figure out than it is like what your lifelong passion is.
Yeah, great. I know you kind of touched on like econ majors kind of having this like or like jobs in the financial industry, obviously like paying well and things like that. Which I think is like a great transition to obviously you were able to retire at such a young age, which means that you've obviously kind of achieved this financial independence that a lot of people don't get their entire lives. And so can you kind of just talk about how you got to that point?
Yeah. So I don't know that it was always called the fire movement, when I was going through school and coming out. But for me, at least, I had a mentality of, look, I don't want to be beholden to a job, right? So I want to have the freedom to kind of do what I want at some point. And part of this is probably more of a kind of a first generation upbringing of, my parents were like, oh, you need to either be a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, or do something that makes money. So growing up with that, I'm like, okay, well, a job is a job to make money. So what do I want to be able to do with my life? And so for me, that was, well, let's make sure I have saved up enough money so that I have that safety net and can do, something else or pursue something else, if I so choose to do that. I think part of that, and I won't go too far into it, is I'm a little bit different, probably. Well, I wouldn't say different, but my flavor of financial independence is a little bit different in that some people go through kind of extreme, uh, being extremely frugal. So they're on like rice and beans and they don't go out and do anything. I think that's if that's what they want to do, that's great, but not for me. A little bit of a balance is better for me in terms of I want to live my life, but also understand the importance of, like, not necessarily chasing the newest things. I'm not going to go and buy the fanciest cars or the biggest houses. And with that, those decisions you can end up, saving and affording kind of some freedom.
Right. So I guess now I would want to ask, if a job is not just like making money, it's still, something that to do in your day. You still have something to do like every day you get up and go to work. So I'm just kind of interested in what was that like decision to help you leave, like have that final decision to leave, if not just going to work just because, not necessarily just because you don't have to, but it still gives you something to do every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that was a whole transition period for me. So obviously, for most people, after you work for a decade, 2 decades, or longer, part of your identity is tied to work, and so you're known as, whoever it is at work, or like that is a big portion of your life. And part of the transition for me was figuring out, like, what is it that I want to do. Um, how heavily do I want to lean into my hobbies? Um, how much of my kind of bucket list, if you want to call it, do I want to run through? And from other people that have gone through kind of my experience of transitioning outside of work, some people will travel for a few years and then you kind of get tired of always traveling. And then you'll settle down and do whatever it is that you want to do. A lot of people will add in volunteering to their days and routines, and that way you'll get some of the social aspects that you get kind of through work, as well as you feel like you're giving back and you're doing something. For me, my focus has been, I've always liked brewing beers and ciders and meads, so I do a lot of that. And then when I get bored of that, maybe I'll go find a brewery somewhere, buy that, and get more of the social aspect of that.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect transition into what we were going to talk about now, which is that obviously we've alluded to you no longer working at Rowe Price and doing your own interests and hobbies now. And so, can you just kind of tell our viewers like a little bit more about what it is that you are doing now with your life and like what's next in terms of the next steps of your life?
Yeah. So right now it's, whatever hobby sparks my interest. So I've been doing some woodworking. I built myself a sauna. Obviously, we talked a little bit about brewing. So, more of the home brewing type of things, reading, working out like most people. We'll travel around kind of where my wife and I's kind of schedule fits. So that's been kind of my life for the past 10, 11 months. And once, if it gets boring, then I'll add something new to the list, and we'll figure it out as we go. But it did take me roughly around 6 months to feel comfortable, where like I woke up and I wasn't like, should I be going to work? Should I be doing something? I think especially our culture here, there's a huge pressure to be kind of productive. And so I think there's a little bit of a mind shift of it's okay to enjoy your time and kind of do what you want to do. Um, that's I think a hard transition for many people.
Yeah, that's a very interesting take about the productivity aspect of things. I know even now we're about to go into summer break and I'm like, what should we do? But going back to the other side of things, if you can imagine yourself as a senior in high school and you could go back in time and talk to yourself right before graduation, what would you tell yourself? And do you think that you would do everything the same way?
Well, probably I would tell myself to hoard Bitcoin, but outside of that, I think I probably not that I would have trusted my like self when I was graduating high school, but I probably would have uh, tried to convince my younger self that look, it's okay to take it at a slightly slower pace. Um, so I came out and wanted to do my CFA, and I wanted to like, obviously it's good to kind of improve yourself and get a bunch of credentials, but I think within a very short amount of time, like I got, a lot of credentials to make sure that I was the most qualified for whatever it is that I wanted to do. Uh, so I think it's just have a little bit more fun, balance your life a little bit more. But I don't think the younger self would have changed anything. Like when you're young is probably the best time to put in all the hours and really kind of work hard and get ahead as much as you can, either if you're doing a startup or, corporate, but work-life balance is good to have.
Not to switch gears too much, but I know you mentioned getting your CPA, and if you look you up on LinkedIn, you have a lot of letters behind your name. You like
Yes.
CPA, ASQ, some of them I've never heard of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you talk more about that specifically? Because I was very interested in A, like what they all mean, but B, I guess how important are they and what helped you decide to do that? I know you touched on it a little bit, but that really interested me when I looked at your LinkedIn page.
Yeah. So the CFA is the certified financial analyst. So that one is recognized mostly in the investment industry, or if you wanted to be a financial advisor. So I thought I wanted to go down that route at some point. That one is one of the harder ones. So it's three tests, level 1, 2, and 3. And that one probably was the hardest of all the letters that I got. The other ones really came through as I was working. So when I went into consulting, a lot of the ones that I got were around project management. So how do you, the different styles of managing a project? So you have regular waterfall type of projects, you have agile, scrum, those type of things. So that's a lot of the other letters that came in. And I can't remember if I left the last one on there, but one of the projects that I was on was a lot of kind of geared toward risk and compliance and audit. And so I think I got one that was around audit. So for me, the decision was, would this help at least at the time, would this help kind of make me better at what I do, and also give me some credentials in terms of, if someone's looking at, this young guy on the other side of the table. At the time I was young, this young guy at the other side of the table, like, why are you here talking to me who's been in this industry for 30 years about what I should be doing? And that's what a consultant kind of does sometimes. And so to me that was like, well, if nothing else, this is a nationally recognized program, so I can at least point to that. Or when they're selling me kind of as one of the people to put onto the project, it makes it a little bit easier.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I had kind of the same question as Avery, so I'm really glad that you kind of touched on that, especially because it can seem kind of daunting to like go into industries like that or feel like you might have some sort of like imposter syndrome about belonging or like feeling like you're not qualified enough. And so I think that makes a lot of sense and also seems really difficult. So that's good, really good on you. Um, yeah, I think our time's wrapping up. So I think we just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your insights and everything with us today. It's been really great.
Yeah,
Yes, thank
best of
you,
luck.
and good luck
Yeah,
on
go
all
ahead.
your hobbies. I'm sure you have a lot of them now. Yeah.
Yeah, best of luck, and I hope you guys enjoy college. Enjoy your summer between now and then.
We
Yeah,
will.
great. We will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.